What if I told you that way back in the 1960s, a science fiction writer pretty much laid out the blueprint for your smartphone, for video calls, and even for our current debates about automation? Well, that writer was Isaac Asimov. And today we're going to use his uncanny foresight to piece together his vision for a world that's literally just around the corner for us, the 2030s.
Just let that sink in for a second. He wrote this in 1964. He is perfectly describing FaceTime, Zoom, and looking at PDFs on your phone. It's just incredible. And that level of accuracy gives you a real sense of the powerful mind we're dealing with here.
So, to really understand Asimov's vision, we're going to follow his logic step by step. He didn't just dream up a future, he built it. We'll start with the massive global crisis he saw as inevitable. Then we'll look at the brand new society he imagined rising from those ashes. And finally, we'll get to the most surprising part, the strange new challenge he predicted would define humanity in the 2030s.
Now you might think his vision of the future starts with flying cars and cool gadgets, but nope. For Asimov, the future doesn't begin with a bang of innovation. It begins with what he called the labor pains of a whole new era. He basically saw this ticking clock. He believed that towards the end of the 20th century, we'd be running out of stuff, stressing out the planet, and that these pressures would become so intense that humanity would face a stark choice: learn to cooperate on a global scale or collapse.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. He didn't just predict a crisis, he actually mapped out a decades-long recovery plan, a step-by-step path from the world being on the brink to the dawn of a new unified world order.
So after that crisis, what's the very first building block for his 2030s society? It's a totally new form of global governance.
And let's be super clear here. This wasn't some idealistic utopian dream of a one-world government. Asimov imagined something far more practical, a global body formed out of the sheer, cold-blooded necessity for survival.
So what's its job description? Well, its to-do list was huge. Basically, it was created to manage all the complex, messy, interconnected systems, food, energy, pollution, that individual countries just couldn't handle on their own anymore.
And to tie this whole global village together, he envisioned a universal language, a lingua franca, taught everywhere. You combine that with his sight-sound technology, and suddenly you can do business with anyone, anywhere. It effectively shrinks the entire planet.
Okay, so global administration is getting centralized. Problem 1 solved. What's next on the agenda? Solving that resource crisis for good. And for that, Asimov said we had to look up.
The logic is pretty straightforward. Earth is like a pantry with a limited amount of food. To keep eating and to keep growing, you eventually have to find a new grocery store. For Asimov, that new store was the rest of the solar system.
And this is so Asimov. He didn't just say, let's go to space. He laid out a clear, logical, 4-step engineering plan. You build a base, you process the local materials, you shoot them into orbit, and then you build giant stuff up there. Simple, right?
So by the time we hit the 2030s, in his vision, this off-world infrastructure is really paying off. The moon is our hardware store, giant satellites are beaming down clean energy, and we're finally starting to reverse the environmental damage back on Earth. All right, so we've got a new world government and factories in space. Sounds pretty epic. But what does that actually mean for you and me on a random Tuesday morning? What would it feel like to live in this world?
Well, first up, education would be completely turned on its head. Forget classrooms and memorizing dates. Learning would happen at home, on a computer, driven entirely by your own curiosity, with teachers acting more like guides who spark your interest rather than just lecturing you.
And the rest of your day? It's a seamless, automated dream. You're cruising around in self-driving hover cars, your kitchen makes your meals for you, your walls are giant TV screens. It's a life where all the tedious chores of the past have just disappeared.
Okay, so everything sounds pretty great, right? Global problems are solved. Daily life is easy. We've made it. But this is where Asimov's vision takes a sharp, fascinating, and frankly kind of a dark turn. This is what he called his most somber speculation.
He realized that by using technology to solve all of our physical problems, hunger, energy, tedious work, we would accidentally create a massive new psychological one. He asked, what do people do all day?
And his answer was chilling. He predicted a future of enforced leisure, leading to a genuine disease of boredom that would have serious mental and emotional consequences. I mean, doesn't that sound a lot like our current conversations about AI taking jobs and the meaning of work? It's uncanny.
So get this, the new class structure in the 2030s isn't about the haves and the have-nots when it comes to money. It's about who has meaningful work to do and who doesn't. And this is the central conflict of his future. You have this small, creative elite, scientists, artists, managers, who get to do interesting, challenging stuff. And then you have everyone else, the vast majority, whose job is just to tend to the machines. They're free from hard labor, sure, but they're trapped in a struggle to find any sense of purpose.
Which leads to the ultimate irony of Asimov's 2030s. In a world where machines can do almost everything, the single rarest, most precious, most sought-after commodity becomes a reason to get out of bed in the morning. It becomes work.
So in the end, Asimov's vision isn't just a prediction. It's a warning. It leaves us with this incredibly powerful question that we are starting to face right now. Once we've finally automated away all our problems, how are we going to learn to live with ourselves?